How's it going, everybody? So in this video I want to talk a little bit about acid-alkaline balance and how it affects the body. So I've actually made a video probably about 2 years ago discussing the very basic fundamentals of acid-alkaline balance and why diets like Dr. Sebi's alkaline diet and the whole acid-alkaline theory behind nutrition is pretty inaccurate as far as, cancer and other diseases being caused by overly acidic bodies, okay? But just to rehash so that everybody knows, to bring you all up to speed, because most people probably haven't seen that video, I'm about to make a acid-alkaline playlist just for the subject, but essentially, here's how this goes. So, first of all, you can't have an acidic body. You can have, various organs in the body, various systems in the body require different levels of pH, okay? Different acid and alkaline balance. So your stomach obviously needs to be extremely acidic. In fact, your stomach is in a healthy human being, your stomach acidity is going to be almost that of a vulture or a hyena. Human beings typically will have a pH of something like 1 to 2 in their stomach, which is extremely acidic. Whereas the blood needs to remain relatively neutral, slightly alkaline. Okay. Now, of course, your colon, your large intestine, your small intestine, your saliva, your kidneys, all of these areas need to have different levels of pH. There's no one level of alkalinity or acidity for every part of your body, or even to govern, a general system. So anybody who tells you your body needs to be alkaline doesn't know what they're talking about. So that's the first and most important concept to understand, is that acidity and alkalinity in your body, it is not black and white. It's not just your body needs to be alkaline. Your blood needs to be slightly alkaline. So typically these people, when they say your body needs to be alkaline, what they mean is your blood needs to be slightly alkaline. That's the main thing. The second thing is that your body does generally regulate blood pH within the so-called healthy range. Now this is where we really need to pay attention because mainstream medicine stops right there. So what most scientists and people who actually understand alkaline acid balance in the body, what they'll say is your body tightly regulates your pH. Therefore, you don't need to eat certain foods to offset the pH balance because it already remains healthy pH balance. Well, here's the thing. So your body does maintain the blood pH within a certain range, but it does so by pulling minerals from other parts of the body. So one example is osteoporosis and tooth decay. So if you're not consuming enough alkaline minerals in your diet, most notably calcium from things like bone meal, bone marrow, and raw dairy products. Because of pasteurization, to a certain extent, it seems to interfere with things like an enzyme that deals with phosphorus. I think it's phosphase. But an enzyme that deals with calcium and phosphorus is destroyed in the pasteurization products. So dairy products that are pasteurized may not be as absorbable of a source of calcium as bioavailable as something like bone meal. And I've seen high bioavailability data from things like broccoli, but you have to be eating quite a lot of broccoli to get enough calcium. Nonetheless, if you're not consuming enough calcium in your diet, for example, then what's going to happen is your body's going to pull calcium from the bone to offset other parts of the body that require that calcium or require an alkaline mineral to maintain the so-called healthy alkaline pH. And so why that's important is because over time you can lose enough calcium to create osteoporosis or dental decay. Cavities can be caused by mineral imbalances, too much phosphorus, not enough calcium, for example. And most people don't eat enough calcium in their diet. Most people, they eat a high amount of phosphorus, not enough calcium. And so that can create a situation where your body has to compensate for the lack of calcium, or you could say the lack of alkaline minerals, by pulling it from your bone. And so, in a sense, you could say that overly acidic blood or something can cause osteoporosis. And then the other thing is, if your body is breaking down minerals in the bone to compensate for other systems of the body that need those alkaline minerals, then you're going to have a greater excretion of some of these minerals as well. Typically, you'll be able to see calcium in the urine and possibly albumin, which is a protein. And so that could be a sign of bone loss or, other issues obviously as well. So in regards to disease, things like cancer, diabetes, heart disease being, caused by acidity, that's nonsense. It's not supported by the data, and it's not as significant. So there's other, much more likely causes of things like cancer, diabetes, and heart disease, and acid alkaline's not necessarily one of them. Especially considering the fact that people can reverse their diabetes on a low-carb diet. It's been proven by intervention trials, it's been compared to plant-based diets, and many thousands of people have done it themselves, used clinically now to reverse diabetes. It doesn't really make sense to be eating all the phosphorus-containing meat that you could say is overly acidic, and then people reverse their diabetes. So acidic diets don't necessarily cause diabetes. Heart disease, there's people that reverse coronary artery calcium using low-carb diets. And so there's that. And then, of course, in regards to cancer, there's numerous cases of people reversing cancer on ketogenic diets. One of my friends, I have an interview with him on my channel, he reversed his leukemia by consuming a ketogenic diet. So, this whole idea that cancer is caused by too much acidity is also nonsense. But what overly acidic diets can do is put a lot of stress on the kidneys and break down bone. Now, how significant is that? I mean, there's quite a lot of people who eat nothing but red meat, muscle meat, and they don't supplement with calcium or bone meal or anything like that. And they don't seem to notice any immediate problems. But you got to realize that things like calcium being stripped from the bone can develop over decades. It's not something you notice immediately. And as far as kidney issues, though, typically you should see the effects on the kidney within a matter of 2 years. So, I mean, even this idea that, it could place stress on the kidneys and cause osteoporosis, there's a variety of different factors that need to be taken into place. So, number one, protein can decrease the breakdown of calcium and increase the sparing of bone tissue and muscle and bone mass in general and bone density. And also other factors of the diet like carbohydrate intake and various minerals like salt intake and things like that can also influence how much bone is being stripped down in the pH of the body. So, or, in general, the pH of the blood. So that's a very black and white thing. I think for people to just claim that, acidic diets are the main cause of osteoporosis and kidney dysfunction, it's that causes disease. People claim that I think is far-fetched based on the evidence we have. Lauren Cordain from the Paleo Diet is somebody who talked a lot about this in his book. So as far as Dr. Seeby's work, you know, it's clear that he did reverse a lot of diseases using his protocols. But I don't think that that was because of acidity or alkalinity. I think the reason why a mostly raw vegan diet can work for cancer is because of autophagy. Like, you're putting your body in a pretty extreme caloric deficit, and you're also not feeding it adequate amounts of protein, in my opinion. But the point here is, if you're not getting adequate protein and you're also not getting adequate calories, and you're eating nothing but mostly raw greens and, you know, heirloom plants, basically what's going to happen is your body starts to break down its own tissues in order to survive. And that's technically creating an autophagy situation. Anybody who knows anything about autophagy knows that seems to be the main reason why things like intermittent fasting and ketogenic diets tend to reverse cancer, other than the fact that it starts to completely shift metabolism in a way that puts cancer cells at a significant disadvantage. And I follow more of the Otto Warburg theory of cancer based on what I've seen. And Dom D'Agostino is using that clinically in his lab and having great results. And so it's just because, you know, Dr. Seeby gets good results on the acid alkaline diet doesn't mean that his reasoning behind the mechanisms of why it works is true. Like, yes, he's getting results, but his explanation as to why it works isn't really accurate. There could be other reasons why it could work, but him not be right about why it works. There's other reasons why. And so that's pretty much the majority of what you need to know about acid-alkaline balance. The other thing is, if you actually are reaching it, so first of all, to reach a state of acidosis, your kidneys would have to not be functioning properly. The whole purpose of your kidneys is to filter out the minerals and various other substances in the blood to prevent things like acidosis or ketoacidosis or things like that from happening. And so typically you don't see states of acidosis unless you have kidney problems, heart failure, diabetes, or you're taking medications that modify the functions of any of those, kidneys, blood, etc. And so if you had acidosis, first of all, you'd have to be predisposed to it through, you know, diseases. Second of all, you would be on the verge of death, and you would be having trouble breathing. All sorts of problems would happen, and you would hopefully be on your way to a hospital, because acidosis, acute acidosis, is extremely serious. So that should have been the first thing I said, is if you have overly acidic blood, you're going to die. So, yeah, I mean, leave your questions and comments down below. I bring this to people's attention because, number one, it'll prevent people from going on these alkaline diets to prevent diseases that could be prevented through various other means that don't require significant nutrient deficiencies, which is what will happen from alkaline diets, depending on how you do it. Something as simple as taking, you know, a bone meal supplement could easily put your body in proper balance. And the other thing is, if you're constantly obsessing over your pH using urine pH strips, which don't necessarily measure the alkalinity of the blood, but they measure the types of minerals, the pH of your urine and the types of minerals that are being excreted in the urine, like that can become orthorexia. It's the equivalent of, you know, ketogenic people like obsessively measuring their blood ketones to make sure they're in ketosis, or like a variety of other things, like excessively cleansing yourself to try to like maintain purity and like. So, but the big thing here is nutrient deficiencies caused by misguided diets. So I just want to avoid people from going down that rabbit hole, because I was a raw vegan back in like, I think it was more like September and October of 2014. There was about a good 2 to 3 months that I was raw vegan, and I was a regular vegan for an entire year. I tried all sorts of things, and I was heading down that rabbit hole, but I don't know why I'm so immune to the nonsense, but I was able to realize very fast that it wasn't really the healthiest thing. You don't want to be like Tim Sheaf, where he like almost kills himself and then drinks his piss thinking that it's helping him somehow. That's what happens to a lot of these alkaline vegan people. So anyway, leave your question and comments down below. Hope that this has helped, and I'll talk to you all next time.